Hello and welcome to this video on why in the future we may not have bananas. This stems from a conglomeration of issues involving genetics, a common pathogen, and our relatively modern farming techniques. As strange as this is to say, it is not the first time that the humble banana has been threatened. The original banana, and what we know as the flavor of banana in food that uses synthetic flavoring, is from the Gros Michel banana, an old variety of banana that was wiped out during the mid-20th century as a commercial crop from the first banana plague. This is also why the synthetic banana flavor is not what we know as the taste of generic bananas today. What happened is surprisingly simple, but also a lesson we should have learned before. Banana plantations were large, they had rows upon rows of the banana plant. They covered hundreds of acres, bananas as far as the eye can see, and nothing else. Much like the Irish potato famine, this created an opening for an opportunistic pathogen. This was a fungal pathogen that lived off of the banana plant, and in doing so killed it. It was something called Panama disease. As the plantations were dense, a monocrop was grown, and only the one kind of banana was grown. The infection was able to spread quickly. It became established, and there was no way to remove Panama disease without wiping out all plantations, the banana plants they'd been growing, and leaving fields fallow for who knows how long, and then hoping, if the Gros Michel was planted again, Panama disease was gone. This is just like potato famine and potato blight. The fungal disease would have continued to live in the soil, and does continue to live in the soil, for a very long time after the plants are removed. When the plants are put back, it begins by attacking their roots, then spreading and destroying the tree from the ground up. This means that you have no way of being able to get a plantation back on its feet if you use the same banana plant. It doesn't matter what crop you try growing, how often you might burn the ground or anything else. This led to the modern banana that we know today. It's called the Cavendish. The banana we eat today is largely immune to Panama disease, and that was why it became popular. It meant plantations could grow this, and largely not lose their production of fruit. Same product for the most part, but no Panama disease. That does bring us to the modern day, and 70 years later, there is another pathogen spreading through banana plantations, a new variant of the Panama disease. Third time might be lucky. It is unfortunate that the lessons from both Panama disease and potato blight were not learned. The plantations for Cavendish bananas are massive monocultures with bananas as far as the eye can see. This variety also has one other big problem. Where the Gros Michel was to a certain degree cloned, there was some variation. Every plant in the Cavendish plantations is practically a clone. What we did not mention about it is that it was sourced from a very small sample set of plants, which were propagated to create more. That made for a very small genetic diversity in the gene pool for this particular variety in its entirety. It's kind of like the royal family, except with bananas. This new variant of Panama disease has a different name, but it is fundamentally the same thing. It is almost identical to the one that wiped out the Gros Michel. It's caused by a similar fungus, and it was already likely present before the Cavendish was being planted out to replace the Gros Michel. It just happened to find a new susceptible host, and so it could spread, multiply, and infect new hosts. It's also able to be spread like wildfire by wind, water, and by vehicles carrying it around. This means it can easily infect new plantations in its proximity. The only solution to this is to burn down the entire plantation and start over with a different crop. Not a different particular variety of banana, an entirely different crop. And that's because restarting bananas will not work. They will simply be exposed to the same fungus again, and it's very few banana plantations that are able and willing to completely wipe out what they've been doing for years. they would have to retool and reset for an entirely different cash crop. This would all seem like a lost cause, but we do have one last option, and that is genetic modification. There are a number of different groups out there trying to develop bananas that are resistant to Panama disease. One group in Australia has been doing field tests, and they're using a type of banana that is supposed to be resistant, if not impervious, to the new Panama disease. They've taken the genes from this particular variety and put it into the Cavendish banana. The different types of banana they've made from this have varying numbers of the gene that make them resistant to it. Some have 1, some have up to 6. By doing this, they're able to give some kind of resistance to the fungus that causes Panama disease. It's also a gene that they're able to pull out of a nematode, so it's relatively benign and has no obvious effects on humans. As of 2012, field trials had begun with this modified banana, and they were comparing it to unmodified controls. To ensure that the crops they were planting out were definitely going to be exposed to Panama disease, they took areas of it and they actually inoculated the soil with this fungal infection. Over the next 3 years, they observed what happened. Between 67 to 100% of the control bananas, those without modification, either died or had obvious signs of infection and were unwell. Compare this with their modified varieties, where some of them had up to 80% of the plants being symptomless. There were also 2 of their 6 that had absolutely no signs of any kind of infection, and after testing were found to be invulnerable to Panama disease at present. The benefits of this, on top of the fact that plantations can continue to grow Cavendish bananas, is that it did not affect the size of the banana bunch, which means yields aren't going to be affected. You're simply going to be able to continue the same variety of banana without any downsides that are known at present. It is likely, however, that genetic modification is not going to be the sole answer. It is more likely that a combination of new varieties of banana that have not been exposed to Panama disease and are resistant independent of everything else, along with genetic modification for resistance to Panama disease, will be the future. More variety, with more bananas that are made resistant to it, so that we don't get the same issues with monocultures for a third time with bananas. Thank you for watching this video. If you have found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions that you might have below.